Hello and welcome back to RBY Pokemon Challenges. This is the final episode of our Brock Minimum Battle series. We have some of the best Pokemon of Generation 1 today. The last 15. We're going to be getting Aerodactyl, the legendary birds, Snorlax, Mewtwo, Dragonite, Mew. This is going to be an insane group to go up against Brock. But we know how strong Brock is, especially when Pokemon don't have super effective moves against him. So, how many of these legendary Pokemon can actually get through Brock on minimum battles? It's going to be pretty insane to watch. Now, this is the last episode of Brock, but we'll be coming back next week with Misty. I'll talk about the structure and how we're going to move forward with those videos at the end. So if you're interested, stick around and we'll show you what the plan is. If you haven't seen the previous 9 episodes of this series, like and subscribe, but go down below. There is a playlist for all of the episodes from episode 1 up to episode 9. And you can find your favorite Pokemon of Generation 1. We just went through in chronological order. So episode 1 went through 1 through 15. So Bulbasaur all the way up to Pidgeot. And it just goes in order like that. So if you want to find your favorite Pokemon, go to the playlist, find the episode, and you can see. Was your favorite Pokemon able to get through Brock on minimum battles? Why do we want to play minimum battles? It's basically about giving every Pokemon a level playing field. Every Pokemon is limited in how much experience it can get up to that point in the game. So we see some of the early game Pokemon, like Bulbasaur, for example, are able to get to Brock at level 8. But most of today's Pokemon, in spite of being some of the strongest in the game, are part of the slower level up groups. So they're only going to get to Brock at level 6. It's going to be a level 6 Mewtwo against a level 10 Geodude. In a case like Mewtwo, that's probably not going to matter, but when we're looking at a lot of other Pokemon, that creates a pretty huge wall. And we really have to think about our moves and our strategies in order to get through. If we don't think about strategy, we can get very hard-walled by Brock this early in the game. So you find a lot of the moves we didn't really like to use that much as kids. Moves like Tackle, Tail Whip, Growl. Using them effectively is much more important against Brock in this early section of the game than we really would have thought of when we were younger. We would have just grinded up a few more levels to get through. But that's becomes pretty time consuming and pretty subjective. It's much more interesting, I think, to play through Brock on minimum battles. It makes good content. It's much more interesting for me to play. I hope you feel the same way. If you have any ideas, suggestions, we can try different challenges in the future. I mentioned with Tauros last week that maybe we'd see if he could grind up to beat Brock, but then sweep the rest of the game on minimum battles. But I'm open to your suggestions. So if you have ideas for future challenges, just leave them in the comments down below. Today, our challengers coming in. We have Porygon. We have all of the fossil Pokemon, Omanyte, Omastar, Kabuto, Kabutops, and Aerodactyl. We're going to get Snorlax, probably the only Pokemon that's going to be able to heal up in battle this early in the game, given that it has rest. We're going to get the 3 legendary birds. Next, Dratini, Dragonair, and Dragonite are all going to have Wrap on their starting strategy. We've seen Wrap be pretty effective against Brock, but will it be enough for them, especially given their low levels? Finally, Mewtwo and Mew, the original Uber Pokemon, the Pokemon that every player was trying to get in their playthroughs. Mew, of course, was never available in-game normally. We could use things like the Ditto glitch or other glitches in order to get Mew. I remember going to the little island next to the SSN and trying to move the truck to get a Mew as a kid. There were so many rumors about how to get that Pokemon. But will they be able to sweep through Brock? Really, how many of these Pokemon do you think are going to get through? It seems like some of the water types will be able to get through. Of course, Articuno's going to get through, no problem. I would expect Mewtwo to get through. But there's a lot of other Pokemon here that are going to struggle against Brock's Rock-type Pokemon. Aerodactyl only starts with Wing Attack. Zapdos starts with Drill Peck and Thundershock. Of course, Thundershock is going to be completely ineffective. Even in the case of Mew, Mew's only going to start the game with Pound and no other moves. So, are these Pokemon actually going to be able to get through? Or are we going to have to knock some of the strongest Pokemon out of the tournament just at the first gym leader? It's going to be interesting to watch. So, let's go ahead and get to our challenge today. So, let's just load up the emulator. And we are starting today's challenge with Porygon. So, getting to Porygon, this Pokemon was actually the reason why I used to always play blue version as opposed to red version. Porygon was only available in Generation 1 at the Game Corner in Celadon City. And the number of coins that it would cost depended on which version of the game you were playing. In blue version, if I recall correctly, it was 6,500 coins, whereas in red version you had to have 9,999 coins in order to get it. So it wasn't a version exclusive, but it was a Pokemon that seemed like it was really meant for blue version over red version. Now, Porygon is also not a Pokemon that I ever felt was super strong, but it does have some interesting things going for it. It starts off with Conversion, which allows it to take on its opponent's typing, and Sharpen, which allows it to increase its attack. So, our Tackle should be able to get stronger using Sharpen, and Conversion should allow us to become a Rock type effectively, so that we can tank more damage from the Rock types that are dealing normal type damage to us. So here we're just going to sweep through the rival, piece of cake. But this is one of those kind of interesting early game movesets, because I don't think we've ever seen a Pokemon that can do anything like this, taking on the opponent's typing. If we can get the damage from the Geodude down enough by becoming Rock type, and if we can boost our attack enough to take out the Geodude, then, we're going to still have the Rock typing when we get up against Onix, so we're going to resist its Tackle and Bind. And if we also have boosted attack stats at that point, it may be possible. We're just going to have to see. So, I expect this to be one of the more interesting runs for a normal type Pokemon. Let's see here. We're up to the Caterpie, perfect. And we're just going to attack and take that Caterpie down. Now, as we can see, we're part of the medium fast level up group, sorry. But so we level up very slowly. And at this point in the game, we're only going to be level 6 when we reach Brock. Of course, we don't use items in battle. That would make this an absolute cakewalk, I think. But we're going to just have to try to get through Brock with our Porygon at level 6. Let's see if we can do it. So, let's go ahead and save, and here, first conversion. So now Geodude is doing 2 damage to us per attack. And let's get our 6 sharpens off. Now we can see, even though we boosted our attack stat quite a bit, we're not doing a ton of damage there. Let's see if we can get caught up to him. When we use a boosting move like Sharpen, we really don't want to see any critical hits. But there we see we've gotten through Geodude, and we've leveled up. Let's get one more Sharpen off. And there we get taken out by the Onix. No matter what we do, we're going to get through to Onix with, I think, a lot less HP than we'd like. And here, like, this part of the battle is all about trying to catch up in the damage race. And if he didn't get that critical hit on us, I think we would have gotten through. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so last time we used 5 Sharpens to get through. And we're just not getting through on this one because, again, he got a critical hit against us. It looks like we need some misses from Geodude. Plus, we need to get good damage ranges ourselves and not get hit with critical hits. So, oh, that was a miss. Yeah, we really need Geodude to miss a couple times. At least. In order to get through this fight. If we don't get any misses, then we're basically already impossible to get through the Geodude. Okay, there we used 6 Sharpens. So it's looking really like it has to be about 2 misses from the Geodude to be able to get through. Basically, we're already down to about half of our HP, and then we're trying to catch up in the damage race. So we get it down to red health, but that first run, or that second run rather, was probably about as lucky as we've gotten against Geodude. And he doesn't miss. Tackle's not 100% accurate, but I believe it's 95% accurate, so it's not impossible for him to have some misses, but it's much more likely that he hits every single turn, and we end up, again, just in this case. And we just have to try to tackle him down. And we got taken out. Okay. And we got taken out. Let's give this a couple more attempts. Like, the issue is that if we can get through to Onix, there's always the chance that Onix goes into just using Bide and Screech over and over again. And we end up in a position where we can possibly just get lucky with it choosing bad moves and making mistakes against us. That's the ideal, that's what we want to see. 3, 4, 5, 6. So if we can get it into a situation where it starts just using Bide repeatedly against us, for example. That was so close, but we didn't get through. It's possible that we could end up getting through the Geodude or through the Onix just based on luck. Whereas the Geodude's much harder because it just keeps using Tackle every single turn. It has reasonably high accuracy. This, we can see, is going to be a really long shot at the very least. Like, we would probably have to sit here and play all day with this to even have one attempt that gets close. When we got to Onix, it's not like we got very close to knocking it out. And we're always going to get to Onix on low HP, so we're always going to be in the position where Onix has a decent chance to knock us out, but we don't really have a great chance to knock it out. On that basis, I think Porygon has to be out of there. So let's move on to our next Pokemon, which is Omanyte. Now, Omanyte, I believe, starts the game with Water Gun, and that, of course, means that it's pretty much a shoo-in to get through. We're Rock type, so we resist all of the attacks of our opponents in this first section. Because every Pokemon in this section basically just knows Tackle, except for the Onix. So we're already going to have an advantage here against, for example, the rival in Oak's Lab, because we're going to resist Tackle. So, yep, there we are. We've got our Water Gun, and as we can see, the rival can't really do much of anything to us. So we're going to be most likely at level 6 when we get to Brock, is my guess. But is it really going to matter if we have a move as strong as Water Gun? Now, we may have issues later in the game because our moveset is very limited. We're definitely going to have to get through Misty and get Bubble Beam in order to progress in the game, I think. But if we can get to Celadon with a Pokemon like Omanyte, then we will open up a lot of TMs that we can use, especially Ice Beam, that should make it at least somewhat possible to get through more of the game. And any Pokemon that can get to Lance with Ice moves is going to do reasonably well. So that's really the end game if we can get there with a Pokemon like Omanyte. One of the frustrating things is that in spite of its rock typing, it can't learn any rock moves. It can't learn, for example, Rock Slide. It would be awesome if it could, because that would put us in a position to have some super effective moves against flying, and I mean, we'll just have to use Ice Beam instead, but if we could have a move like Rock Slide, we would get stabbed, plus have a physical move for Pokemon that are weak weak defensively. But here we are. We're at Brock. We have Water Gun. Let's find out if Water Gun will be enough. And Geodude's a one-hit. And Onix is a one-hit. So, sure enough, Omanyte gets through. So let's just go ahead and make sure that we've saved. And Omanyte, no problem. Straight through Brock, easy run. And now let's get our Omastar up here. So, Omastar, of course, is just going to be a superior Omanyte. It's not a stone evolution, so I expect that it basically starts with the same moveset or maybe one more move than Omanyte does. And of course, I mean, everybody can just spam Lord Helix in the chat because we have, of course, everybody's Lord and Savior in Generation 1. And obviously, Omastar is going to do much better on a playthrough of the whole game than Omanyte because it's going to have superior movesets. We've added Horn Attack here, which will help us if we come up against, for example, Misty later on. We'll have a move that is not resisted by Misty. That's going to be one of the really big challenges of the Omanyte run, is that when we get to Misty, we're only going to know Water Gun still. You normally get these Pokemon at level 30, and because you get them at such a high level, they don't really have a lot of new moves early in the game. I know that's something that they've worked on kind of improving in the newer generations, is that Pokemon will learn moves at earlier levels, even if you normally wouldn't get them at that level. They seem to have adjusted the movesets so that if you got a level 5 Pokemon in Generation 3 and onwards, they'll still learn moves early in the game. Not for every Pokemon, but for a lot of them. Which is definitely an improvement, because a lot of these Pokemon that we're playing with today are really not going to learn any new moves between now and the mid-game through level up. When you think about Pokemon like the legendary birds, Snorlax, these fossil Pokemon, Mewtwo, I mean, you don't even get Mewtwo till level 70 in this game, so Mewtwo will probably never learn any level up moves, or at least won't learn very many of them. So there's a lot of these late game Pokemon that are at a real disadvantage because they don't get moves via level up in the early game. So they just, whatever their moveset is basically their moveset until we start picking up TMs that are useful. And for a lot of them, the first useful TMs will be coming around Celadon City. So we're going to have to see how that works out. But here we have Omastar. We're up against Brock. And Water Gun. Water Gun. Easy battle. So that does it for the first two fossil Pokemon. And now it's time to move on to Kabuto. Now, I will admit that as a kid, I thought that Kabuto was much cooler than Omanyte. And one of the reasons why I liked Kabuto so much is because when I was a kid, I thought that the best strategy for Pokemon was to have as many different types of attacking moves as possible. So if I could have a Pokemon that had 4 different types of attacking moves, I thought that that was just clearly better than a Pokemon that had a single typing or like a couple typings of moves. In general, that is true, but of course, move strength is important too. But the reason why I liked Kabuto so much when I was a kid was because of the fact that it could learn basically everything that Omanyte can learn, with the exception of it can learn Absorb. And of course, Absorb is not a terribly strong attack, but if you had a Kabuto against an Omanyte, Absorb would be your absolute ace in that situation. You'd be dealing 4 times damage and healing off of the opponent. So it really was a move that drew me to Kabuto over Omanyte, because it, to me, was just really cool that you could get a move like Absorb and get a grass type move on your water rock Pokemon. So because of that, I used to love Pokemon. Zubat, for example, learning Leech Life. It's a bug type move, but on a poison flying Pokemon. Pokemon like Venomoth, bug, poison Pokemon that learns psychic type moves, for example. I thought that those were the strongest Pokemon in the game because they could learn so many different types of moves early in the game. We'll have to see if Kabuto can do anything here. So let's just double check. Oh, I didn't put max DVs on our Kabuto. That's why its stats are so low. We're already going to have to reset this in order to give him at least a decent fighting chance here. Because the real issue of our Kabuto, as we can already see, is that its starting moves are Scratch and Harden. And in general, I would say that Harden would be helpful, but given that we're already Rock type, I mean, Harden at best is going to get us to maybe taking 1 damage from the Geodude per turn, which might be enough, but then Scratch isn't very strong, so it's not going to be a great move to get through Geodude with. This isn't going to be an easy sweep like our Omanyte run was. And I think it kind of tells us what's to come, because we're going to get Aerodactyl soon. We're going to get Zapdos, Moltres. Like, these are Pokemon that aren't going to have a big advantage against Brock, especially due to their early game movesets. And we're just going to have to see if it's going to work out or not in these fights. Okay, so let's get back to where we were, which we just needed to get our Kabuto its max DVs, because without max DVs, I mean, it's not fair for a single Pokemon to go without max DVs, since that's what we've set as the strategy and the rules for this set of runs. Later, of course, we will come back. I've already said it in previous episodes, but the plan is to come back with Pokemon that can beat the whole game and replay the whole challenge, but with minimum DVs on those Pokemon. We're going to see how much their DVs actually mattered to getting through. And I think some of those Pokemon will drop right out on Brock. Like, if we really wanted to go hardcore, we would have said, like, every Pokemon gets 0 DVs, and let's see how many can beat Brock. But that will be for a later challenge. So, here we are with our Kabuto. We're at level 6. We can't gain any more experience. We just have to jump into the battle and see, can our Kabuto beat Brock? So, I think our best strategy is to start off with Harden, and now we have to really just hope that we can get through. It's not looking too great, though. Like, we need critical hits against the Geodude, and we need it to not get critical hits against us. That clearly didn't work on that one. So, it's doing 1 damage to us per turn, which is good. But in this snail's race of dealing damage, it looks like we need Geodude to miss, or we need some critical hits. Not like that critical hit just now against us. Because otherwise, like even if we did 6 Hardens, it doesn't change anything. It's still going to do 1 damage per turn. The only reason for trying like a bunch of Hardens is that there is a glitch, a situation in this generation where if you can lower the damage of the opponent enough, the opponent will miss based on the game's rounding its damage to 0, and if a Pokemon ever does 0 damage, it's just counted as a miss in this generation. But here, I mean, we really need Geodude to miss. We need to get some critical hits. This one's pretty close. I mean, we do hit first every time. And it got a critical hit on us. That's terrible. Come on. Like, we need Geodude to please just miss some tackles, and then we need to get some critical hits. And, I mean, we're faster than the Geodude, so we should theoretically get more critical hits than it does, but just that's not enough. We need it to miss attacks against us. And every run here is going to be such a grind because of the fact that we just don't do much damage. If we had any stronger move than Scratch, I think that this would be easily doable. But Scratch, being that it's such a weak move, I think we have to call it right there, folks. Kabuto comes pretty close to taking out the Geodude, but what happens next? We level up, but we're up against Onix, and we're going to be outsped by the Onix, of course, and we're not really going to have any way to do any more damage against the Onix. Onix's defense is higher than Geodude's. So we're going to be, again, doing like 1 damage over and over and over again. The Onix can use Bind to do multiple points of damage. The Onix can use Bide, and because we're slower, we're going to still hit it and then take damage in return. So, unfortunately, Kabuto, without a lot more grinding, just isn't going to be possible. So Kabuto is out of there. Let's move on to Kabutops. I thought Kabutops was like the coolest of the fossil Pokemon. I mean, it's like Scyther. Scythes for arms, but it also had cool moves. Like I said, it could use Absorb, it could use Swords Dance to get super strong with its attack. It, of course, resisted normal types, which I always thought was cool. Of course, it never became a big competitive Pokemon because it has some crazy 4x weaknesses. Like if you've got a water type move, you'll take it out. It doesn't resist electric types. But here we can see that we have our move Absorb, which is the signature move of Kabutops versus Omanyte and Omastar. And now, we're not going to get stabbed with this move, but I don't think it's going to matter because unlike Water Gun, Absorb lets us heal up off of the opponent. And that plus the super effective nature of a Grass-type move, I think is going to be enough to get us through Brock. He's not going to be doing a lot of damage to us, and we're going to be able to heal up that damage even if we don't take him out in a single hit. So, plus we resist pretty much anything that Brock can do to us. If he uses Bide, we'll just have the advantage of being able to get multiple hits off on him. So, I expect this to be a fairly simple run. And I expect that to hold up as we get later in the game, because in Mount Moon, we're going to get Water Gun. And when we get to Misty, we're going to be able to use Absorb against her Pokemon in order to, I think, make that a pretty easy battle. And on top of that, we're going to get Bubble Beam at that point, so we're going to have another strong move. It seems to me like Kabutops rather, through this early game is going to do fairly well. So here we see we're doing about half damage, just slightly less than half damage to the Geodude, but we're healing up every time, so it doesn't make a big deal. Get a critical hit off on the Onix, and then we take the Onix out the next turn. Easy peasy, no problem. Brock, you never stood a chance against our Dome Fossil Pokemon. So, clearly, we've proven that the Dome Fossil is much better than the Helix Fossil because we have a Grass-type move. But that is 3 out of our first 5 Pokemon through Brock. Let's move on to the last of the fossil Pokemon, Aerodactyl. And we can see definitely I've played my Aerodactyl ROM before because I've played through most of the game with Aerodactyl. I always loved its speed, but it's very limited by its moveset. So Pokemon that have really good stats but really limited movesets are always very interesting to play through on solo runs because it's interesting to see what strategies we can use in order to get through. Aerodactyl, it all comes down to its insane critical hit chance. Any fast Pokemon in Generation 1 has a great critical hit chance. But Aerodactyl can't learn moves like Rock Slide in this generation. So it's basically stuck with just stab flying moves. And then moves like Hyper Beam, for example. You see it on Lance at the end of the game, where you get a Hyper Beam that has a high chance of getting a critical hit. And you can suddenly get through a lot of Pokemon in a solo run. But that involves getting the Hyper Beam TM and teaching it to Aerodactyl. But if you can make it work, then suddenly it becomes a pretty strong sweeper against a lot of different Pokemon. But of course it struggles against Rock-type Pokemon because it doesn't have anything that can really affect them. It doesn't learn Earthquake in this generation. So yeah, it can be a very interesting Pokemon to play through the game with. So right here, what we're hoping for is that our critical hit rate will come into play against the Geodude, allowing us to get through, even though we have such a weak move in Wing Attack. And then we're hoping that our speed will come into play against the Onix, where we're going to be able to outspeed Onix because we have such insane speed here. And so then we hope the Onix just uses moves like Bide and Screech as much as possible. It would be so much nicer if we started off with Screech or Supersonic, these moves that Aerodactyl can learn, but unfortunately we just start off with Agility and Wing Attack, which doesn't really do all that much for us given that we're already faster than everything. So, as we can see, we're winning the damage race here against Geodude, even without a lot of critical hits. The challenge comes here against the Onix. Okay, it used Bide. And we can see kind of the issue that we have right here is that Onix is lowering our defense, so when it does attack us, it's getting a bit more damage now, so its bind just immediately did 2 damage. But we're not doing a ton of damage to the Onix, so we really need our critical hit rate to come into play. And we really need as much HP as possible left when we get to Onix, which clearly we didn't get this time. But Onix can always just go into using Bide repeatedly, which is all that we'd really need. So, okay, that's 1 critical hit off on the Geodude, but not getting great damage here, unfortunately. Okay. Of course, Onix gets a critical hit off on us. And taken out. Yeah, we just need a string of like critical hits. Maybe some misses from Geodude would be nice. It's just Wing Attack is resisted by these Pokemon, so we don't get any advantage there. And we're taken out. So we can see that we pretty reliably get through to the Onix. Getting to Onix is not a problem, because we win the damage race with Geodude. The problem is that we get to Onix with so little HP that, well, in there I say that we can get through the Onix no problem, and we get taken out by the Geodude. But we just get to Onix with so little HP that we then can't really stand up too well against it. Like I said, he can go into a Bide loop like this. We really don't like seeing Screech and Bind, though. Now, we can't really boost our speed in order to get more critical hits. Critical hits are based on our base speed, so it's not like we can just boost our speed to get more crits. That would be awesome if we could, but and we're taken out. This seems like a battle where if we could get just the right kind of luck, we might be able to get through and win. But it really comes down to getting perfect luck against these Pokemon. Here we got through with just a little more HP. See, we like all these attack misses. And we get taken out. We got the Onix down to about half HP. So, as we can see, Aerodactyl, it's an awesome Pokemon. It was one of my favorites in Generation 1, but it just doesn't do enough damage with its attacks. If we were a couple levels higher, I think that this would be an easy win. But that's not how we play minimum battles, so Aerodactyl is out. Let's move on to the Pokemon that dominated, especially from Generation 2, but in Generation 1 it was also a very strong Pokemon, in Snorlax. Now, Snorlax is going to be very interesting. As we can see, I've played through the game with Snorlax before as well, because it's just such an awesome Pokemon. It has so much going for it. Snorlax, I think, is a Pokemon that may be able to do the minimum battles run for the entire game. And the reason for that is pretty simple. It has a lot of bulk, it has an awesome moveset, and especially with Amnesia, it's going to be able to take advantage of the Badge Boost glitch. And as it does, it's going to be able to boost its stats in the right situations. And here with Rest, we're going to be able to take advantage of healing. And other Pokemon in this game, or in these runs, are not really going to be able to heal up in battle. We may get a couple of Pokemon that will learn Recover later, but that's about it. Pretty much everything else is going to be stuck just going through battles normally and not really being able to heal up in any way, shape, or form. So here we can see that the big difference is Amnesia will have no effect on the battle with Brock because we don't have any special moves. And Brock doesn't use any special moves, so there's not really a big point in using Amnesia to boost our stats. But Headbutt, Stab, it's a fairly strong normal type move, chance to flinch, and if we get our health too low, we can look at healing up using Rest in order to get through. I just realized we didn't give our max DVs to our Snorlax, but that's okay. We're going to level up here against the Caterpie. This is another Pokemon in the slow level up group, so the disadvantage is going to be that this Pokemon's going to play through the whole game at much lower levels than most of our opponents. Here we are against Caterpie. We're going to Rest just to heal up, and then Headbutt to take it out. The other disadvantage that a Pokemon like this is going to have is it's going to have trouble running away from wild Pokemon encounters. Speed determines the likelihood of running away from Pokemon encounters. And so when you get a really slow Pokemon like Snorlax, you'll often get the couldn't get away message. So we'll just have to see how that works out. But here we are. We're against Brock. We have Snorlax. Headbutt, we can see we're not doing a ton of damage. Geodude's doing decent damage against us. But we have a pretty big advantage that we can go to sleep. And yep, we accidentally hit it while using Bind or Bide. So if we hit the Onix during a bide, we're just going to go to sleep to heal up. Okay, and just use Amnesia. Oops, I didn't need to use Rest there. Let's use Amnesia. And we got taken out because we took far too many screeches there and didn't do much damage. So let's go back here against the Geodude. Okay, and we're going to rest up and take out Geodude right there. Now, one of the issues that we have is that we don't actually have too many headbutts. So from here, we're basically trying to use up all of our PP on our other moves so that we can struggle. Oop, and we got taken out before we could struggle. Okay. But that is a consideration, that headbutt doesn't do a lot for us when it comes to... It has very low PP. We're gonna have to use up all of our amnesias here. That becomes a good question, whether it's better to just use up amnesia against Geodude, but I mean, here against Onix, we can get some situations where it seems like it's good to just use it up here. Okay, and we want to finish off by using Rest because we prefer to start struggling with as much HP as possible. So ideally we get like this, a situation where... Okay, and now we only got Struggle, and he takes us out. So that didn't work. Seems to me like Amnesia might be best to just use up against Geodude, and then rest. And then go back to using up our Amnesias, and then rest. And then go back to using Amnesia, and then rest. Like, Amnesia doesn't really give us any advantage at this point. Okay, and now let's start headbutting. Okay, and we're through to Onix. Ooh, and we got taken out. Okay. But I do think that this is the strategy, is to use up our amnesias here against Geodude, then rest. Because yes, Geodude does damage to us like every single turn, but on the flip side, it doesn't do so much damage and it can't lower our stats at all. Which is the real issue against Onix, is that it uses Screech against us. So there we go. Okay, Amnesia's used up. Let's rest. Ooh, and sorry, I messed up my move order there. Okay. Okay, so now Amnesia's used up. And always nice when we can get a flinch from the Geodude. Get up there. Okay, and take it out. Okay, perfect. So yeah, we get through to Onix with only 6 headbutts remaining. So there, we've used up the last of our headbutts. And now we're going to sleep, and we have to try to struggle him down, which we got pretty close there, but it just didn't work out. I mean, it's just very questionable which is a better strategy. It's probably best to get the Geodude down into like 1-hit range and then start using up our amnesias. So here we're just using up amnesia. Okay, and heal up. And boom, we're through. Okay. So here, 5 headbutts to use against Onix. Okay, we needed to rest there. Okay. And now we are stuck just using Struggle. Don't hurt me. We get so close to taking it out, but of course Struggle is nowhere near as strong as Headbutt. There we just absolutely crushed the Geodude. Okay, we got our rest off. Now it's time to amnesia. And we got taken out. Yeah. I mean, like, we really just have to use up amnesia against Geodude. As nice as it is to crush the Geodude and just get right through. Oops, that was a misplay. So, amnesia and rest. Amnesia and rest. Amnesia and rest. Amnesia and rest. Amnesia, rest, amnesia. Let's start headbutting. Rest. Headbutt, 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 headbutt. There we go. Okay, and now we are using struggle. We just need luck. Really, just don't attack us. Come on, Onyx. And we got through. There we go. Okay, that was the luck we needed. We just needed the Onyx to not attack us enough times in order to get through. So it's a grind, that run, but Snorlax survives and gets through with no PP left on any of its moves. It was just struggling to get through Brock. So there we go. Articuno is next, and I think we already know that Articuno is going to get through this battle pretty easily, given that it is an Ice-type Pokemon, and it's going to start off with, I believe, Ice Beam, which is going to be super effective here against Brock. The wall for Articuno early in the game is going to be Misty. And Misty is going to be tough because of the fact that she's going to resist our Water-type moves, and we don't really get access to any, or resist rather, our Ice-type moves. And we're not going to get many opportunities to get other strong moves early in the game. Now, the advantage that we have is that Ice-type moves can freeze, and this may be a situation where hoping for a freeze is a legitimate strategy, because if we can freeze Starmie, Staryu I think will be able to get through regardless, but Starmie, if we can get a freeze off on it, there's no way for Pokemon to thaw out of a freeze other than for us to use a Fire-type move on it in this generation, or to use an item. I don't think Misty stocks full heals the same way that Brock does. So, because of that, it may be possible to just get a freeze off on Starmie and then break through it that way. And then Lieutenant Surge is also going to be difficult, but the benefit there is that we don't actually have to fight Lieutenant Surge immediately. We can go through Rock Tunnel, go to Celadon City. Not that we're going to get a ton of great TMs in Celadon for our Articuno, but we will be able to get Fly, and we will at least be able to get a normal type move, like for example maybe Double Edge for it. That could help us, but the bigger advantage is that we'll actually, in that case, be able to get some extra levels before we go back and fight Lieutenant Surge. When we get to the middle game, routing is going to be very interesting, and I'm thinking about the best way to handle it. I'm really thinking that after Misty, the next goal post for Pokemon will actually be Celadon City, as opposed to fighting Lieutenant Surge, so just get to Celadon. Because if they can get to Celadon, regardless of whether they beat Surge or not, that's where the game really opens up for TMs and other types of advantages for these Pokemon. So, I say as I realized that we never gave max DVs to our Articuno. So I'm thinking that after Misty is a required gym leader battle. We cannot progress in the game without beating Misty. But after that, most of the gym leaders are pretty optional. So having Celadon be the next goalpost, so to speak, in the challenge makes a lot of sense, because that's where Pokemon are going to get access to a ton of TMs, They're going to be able to really choose their routes from there. So once we get to Celadon and we save, that will be the end of a run. And then after that, we'll think about just having each episode be the Pokemon has to beat a gym leader, any gym leader in any order, but they beat a gym leader and they've progressed in the challenge. So if they think they can go down and beat Koga, we'll go beat Koga first. If Erica's easy, we'll beat Erica. If Lieutenant Surge is easy, we'll go and beat Lieutenant Surge. But just whatever would make the most sense for our Pokemon at that point. And that's why Articuno, if it can get through Misty, is going to have a decent chance, because we can just go fight Erica. We don't have to fight Lieutenant Surge until we're ready for him. Anyway, here we are. We have Articuno. Ice Beam. Done. Ice Beam. Done. We have a level 8 Articuno now after using those moves, and it's that easy. Articuno is through Brock in no time at all. Let's move on to Zapdos. Now, Zapdos is a Pokemon that I messed around a little bit with in this run, because whether Zapdos can do it or not really comes down to whether or not Drill Peck can do enough damage. If our Drill Peck does decent damage, and we can win the kind of damage battle against the Geodude, we will, I believe, outspeed the Onix. And with our Pokemon outspeeding Onix, we'll be able to use Thunder Shock when Onix uses Bide, and use Drill Peck when we want to try to do damage. It's not a perfect strategy, but it is at least a reasonable strategy. But it really comes down to whether or not Drill Peck can do enough damage to get us through the Geodude reliably. And then against Onix, we have to get good luck. We need the Onix to really go into using some Bides, missing with Screech, missing with Binds, are all good results for us. Next is hitting with Screech. And last, of course, the worst case for us is that it just uses Tackle and Bind and hits us, and we get taken out, because Zapdos is not very bulky. At the end of the day, it's not going to take a ton of damage from our opponents, so we really need to be able to get through with basically just enough damage output. So here, Caterpie, I mean, easy, just Drill Peck and it's down. Like, super effective move, and it's a reasonably strong or flying type move. So that's fine. We've got to stab Drill Peck to try here against Brock, but this is going to be a challenge. Let's try. Here we are. We are against the Geodude, and we're going to use Drill Peck. We can see that Drill Peck is doing decent damage, so that is a good sign. We are through with 12 HP remaining, and we level up. We are outspeeding Onix. So we just need better luck than that against Onix for sure. And that time, Drill Peck did not get us through Geodude. Okay, we're through again. And Onix promptly takes us out. And we get taken out. That first run, we just got insane luck. We got through with so much HP. Okay, now when Onix uses Bide, we just use Thunder Shock against it. But Bind takes us down. We really need misses from Geodude and critical hits for us to get through that part. So come on, critical hit, nice. Okay, we're back through to Onix, but we need Onix to not attack us, basically. Okay, we're back through to Onix and we get taken out. We like the miss from Geodude. We like this run against Onix so far. And we get taken out. And the other issue that I can see coming up here is that we're running out of Drill Peck PP. So at some point against Onix, we're going to have to use Struggle, and that's going to require us to use up all of our Thunder Shocks. On that basis, Zapdos, it's a good attempt, it's a good try, but I think Zapdos is out of there. So let's move on to another Pokemon that is legendary. And we're going to be trying a move that I don't think we've used in this series yet with any of our Pokemon. And that move is going to be Fire Spin. Now, Fire Spin is basically Fire-type Wrap, right? It has fairly low accuracy, but it can lock the opponent in for between 2 and 5 turns when it hits. And it has the chance to get a burn off, which we've already seen. Burning Brock's Pokemon is a huge advantage because it lowers their attack and it does special type damage. So yeah, he'll heal the burn with a full heal, but he'll be stuck taking damage from us for multiple turns. It's special type damage. Geodude and Onix don't have great special, so this should be an interesting run, to say the least. But the other advantage that we'll have is that we can do multiple damage per PP. So unlike Zapdos, which was just hitting, one attack for every usage of its Drill Pick and it's running out of PP, here we could hit up to 5 times with our Fire Spin and possibly use that in order to get through. So we're going to have to see how it goes, but that is the idea, and the game plan is Fire Spin for the win. There was a run not too long ago by J Rose 11 in the past year where he did the legendary birds in blue version, and he basically ended up at the conclusion that Moltres was the worst of the legendary birds, that the fire type just wasn't very good. But I think we might arrive at a different conclusion, because J-Rose doesn't really like to use moves like Wrap or moves like, in this case, Fire Spin. He gets frustrated very quickly with the fact that it's not super consistent, so he just gives up on the runs. Whereas here, we don't have a choice. We have to do this on minimum battles. So if we're gonna get through, we're gonna have to get lucky in certain spots. That's fine, but we just need to see that it's possible. So let's get in here. We've already missed with one fire spin. And we can see definitely it's not super consistent in terms of accuracy, in terms of how many hits it gets off, but we're through to Onix. And we're basically going to do the same thing here against Onix. We're going to wrap it up in a fire spin, and that did not work, but we got through, right? We ran out of fire spins, we used them all up, but after using fire spins so many times against his Pokemon, we're through Brock, and on the first attempt. Yeah, we had to finish off the Onix with some Pecks, but that's fine. For a minimum battles challenge, we'll take that all day. So that is another Pokemon through Brock. So far, we've got 5 Pokemon through Brock. 6 Pokemon through Brock. And we've got the last 5. The Dratini, Dragonair, Dragonite line, Mewtwo, and Mew coming up. So, Dratini, I think, is going to be a little rough. Dratini's not a super strong Pokemon, of course, and it doesn't have a great starting move set. In fact, early game, its only moves are, it has, of course, Wrap and Leer, which we'll have to see if Leer comes into play with our Wraps here. And then we have access to, with some levels, we're not going to get there yet, but we will get access to Thunder Wave, which just helps our Wraps because you paralyze the opponent, you can then outspeed them, and you can hopefully get through more consistently. But then it doesn't really learn a whole lot of moves until quite a bit later it will learn Slam. So here we use Leer and we get our Wraps off, and there we go, we're through the rival. Now, Dratini is a slow level up Pokemon, so we can see that we didn't gain any levels, or we didn't gain a level off of the rival fight. That's to be expected with pretty much all of the remaining Pokemon except Mew, is that they're not going to level up off the rival. We're going to have to fight the Caterpie in Viridian Forest to get to level 6. Fortunately, no Pokemon can get through to Brock at anything lower than level 6. They're always level 6 by the time they get there. But still, level 6 with a Dratini is not going to be a great setup for getting through Brock. We're really going to have to hope for good accuracy with our Wraps, especially against the Geodude, where we're hoping that we can do decent amounts of damage to it after maybe using 1 or 2 Leers. Maybe we can get in the range of doing like 2 damage per hit and then just trying to wrap it down, which is just going to require us to have decent accuracy in that spot. So we're going to save even here before the Caterpie, given that this strategy can be so inconsistent. Okay, and we've gotten a bunch of Leers off, and we're through. Perfect. The real problem against Geodude is going to be how many Leers can we even get off before it takes us into too low of a damage range that we just have to start using Wrap, and we can't miss with any Wraps against it. So let's try it. So first, if we just use Wrap, we can see that it's clearly doing about 1 damage per hit. So, not great, but if it allows us to get through with decent health, then we can try to use Leer on Onix to get through. Now, that didn't work. Let's see how Leer affects things here. So, it looks like at most we can take about 3 hits from the Geodude before we get taken out. And there we miss with Wrap. If Wrap was 100% accurate, then the strategy clearly would be just to use as many Leers as possible against the Geodude, and then use Wrap and hope to get through. But here we get even 1 miss, and that just completely takes us out of the fight. See, with 2 Leers, it still looks like we're really only doing like 1 damage per hit. It might be a range where sometimes we're doing 1 and sometimes we're doing 2, but okay. Regardless, we got through, and we'd really love for Onix to just start off with Bide against us, so that we could try to set up our Leers on it. And we missed. Okay. And we got taken out. Okay. Okay, that didn't work. And yeah, here against the Geodude, we really need good damage ranges in terms of getting, not just 2 turn wraps, but ideally 4 and 5 turn wraps off. Okay. So we're through to Onix with half of our wraps, but it just takes us right out. That didn't work. That didn't work. Okay, that didn't work. Like, this is going to be among the most luck-based strategies in the entire game, because we're basically using Leer against Geodude like 3 times, and then hoping that we don't miss with any of our wraps after that, and that we get decent numbers of hits with our wraps. Of course, if Geodude can miss, that's a huge advantage for us, but we've gotten through to Onix a couple times, and then the Onix has just promptly taken us out before we could do any setup on it. And yeah. That becomes the second question of, is it better to just try to let's try it just one more time, and let's try a strategy where we just try to use Wrap to get through Geodude as quickly as possible. So not trying to lower its stats or anything, just trying to get it down. So that seemed to be about just as good as anything. And now we've got 6 Leers off on Onix. And we're just trying to wrap it down now. Okay. And we just couldn't get through. We got it to about half health on that one. So it might end up being that the best strategy is just to use Wrap against Geodude to try to get through as quickly as possible, and hopefully with as many Wraps left over as possible. And then here against Onix, try to set up. So let's try that. I mean, in theory, if we can get enough Wrap luck, we could get through to Onix with full HP. And we've still got more than half of our Wraps remaining. Here against Onix, I think we have no choice but to go for Leer against it. But yeah, this all comes down to how good a luck we can get with our Wraps against Geodude. Ideally, we want about half of our Wraps remaining when we get through. But there we go. We've gotten through to Onix with full HP. Uses Bide. Okay. It's using Bide, but we're using Wrap. Now the problem here is that we can see that we're not doing a ton of damage, and we've run out of Wraps at that point. So we got taken out. So it's really going to come down to our damage ranges here, which in this case means how many hits do we get off with each Wrap. If we get 5 hits off with every Wrap, right, we're doing at least 5 HP of damage. And that would be enough to be able to get through both Pokemon. But then we have to take into account that Wrap is not 100% accurate, so it will have misses. And then we've also got to worry about the damage ranges of it. So we need not 2-turn Wraps, but 5-turn Wraps as much as possible. Okay, so we have 10 Wraps here against Onix. Let's use Leer. Let's use Leer again and again. Again and again and again. Now let's Wrap it. See, and here we just really don't want to see and there we've run out of PP again. So unless we're going to get insane luck, we're just not going to get through that fight. But this does seem like the way to go, is just to use Wrap as many times as possible against the Geodude. And then we have to hope to get through with a decent number of Wraps against Onix. But if Onix has about 40 HP, then definitely at 1 damage per hit, we're not going to be able to get through, even with perfect accuracy. with 6 wraps. So we really need about 10 wraps left against Onix, I think, in order to get through. So if we get to Onix with fewer than 10 wraps, I think we can just automatically reset. And there we can already see that we're fewer than 10. So I think 10 is a reasonable number, where if we assume that we get our setup off and we assume that we get some decent amount of hits, that 10 should be enough. See here, 8. That's pretty rough. Because with 8, I think we have to hit every single time. You know, here we're at 3 wraps, and there's just no way we're getting through with 3. So it really comes down to luck here. How much damage can we do to Geodude with our wraps? But this one is one where it's not like this run is impossible by any means. I think clearly this run is very possible. Okay, and we're getting through with 9 wraps here. Now I think we definitely need to get Leer off on Onix. And that just didn't work. We have 7 wraps remaining, which, I mean, unless we can get all of our Leers off, just isn't going to be enough. So, like, we really just don't want to miss with any wraps, and we want to get decent ranges, 3, 4, 5 hits per wrap. Okay, so here we're through with 10 wraps. We took no damage. And we got taken out. So we just didn't get good luck there. So Dratini's definitely a frustrating run because of this, because like it's clearly possible, but it's going to require very specific luck to get through. And it's not like we're doing a ton of damage with our attacks here, so and we really hate seeing that bind there on us. We really need good luck against the Onix in terms of its moves choices, because we're going to end up in that spot a lot where 3, 4, 5, 6, okay. We managed to get all of our Leers off. Like, we really need for it to not attack us as much as possible. And we run out of wraps. Like, at this point, I think Dratini is probably just too inconsistent to be able to get through. So we're going to drop Dratini out. We keep getting to Onix, and when we do get our good runs, we're running out of wraps before we can take it down. So let's see if Dragonair can do it where Dratini couldn't. For Dragonair to get through, basically it's going to be using the same strategy, but it's going to have higher stats, and it's going to need to do the same thing of hopefully getting through the Geodude with a decent range on its wraps, but then hopefully we can do enough damage to the Onix after using Leer that it will be a little more consistent. And then Dragonite's going to be more of the same, but Dragonite, of course, will have even higher stats than its two lower evolutions. So if we can do it with Dragonair, then I think we're confident to say that we can do it with Dragonite as well. The other advantage that Dragonair has against the Pokemon before Brock is that it has Thunder Wave, but of course that's not going to help us against Brock, because his Pokemon will resist the move based on their ground typing. So yeah, this is going to be another fairly inconsistent run, to say the least, but Dragonair at least has a chance. I think if we can end up doing just a little more damage with our attacks than we were doing with the Dratini after using our Leers. It looked like even using 6 Leers, we were really still in the range of just doing like 2 damage per hit to the Onix, so not enough to make that consistent in any sort of way. So and the other disadvantage that we kept having there was that Onix would use Bide and we would wrap it while it was in Bide, which isn't great. 5, 6. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Meaning that we would take damage dealt back from its Bide. But there we go. Dragonair is through Viridian Forest. Easy peasy. But now we have to start the grind, which is against Brock. We've leveled up. We've got slightly better stats, but let's see if we can do anything to make this more consistent. So we're going to start off with the same strategy that we were using with Dratini here, which is we want to get through Geodude with at least 10 wraps remaining. Okay, here we're getting through with 9, but now we want to use Leer 6 times ideally. It still looks like we're in the range of only doing like 1 or 2 damage to Onix, which is really not what we want to see. So let's try now a Leer-based strat on Geodude. Clearly 2 Leers is not enough to really make any big difference in the amount of damage we're doing to it. So probably 3 Leers is the minimum to get any sort of advantage there. And now, so let's go for 3 Leers. Okay, and we just couldn't land any attacks after that. 3. Still doesn't look like we're getting any real advantage. 4 Leers. Yeah, I mean, Wrap is just such a weak move that it's like maybe we're getting to do 2 damage at that point per attack as opposed to 1 damage per attack, but that doesn't really do a whole lot for us. So probably the best move is just to start off with Wrap and try to hit as many times as possible. So we're through with 9 Wraps remaining here. Okay. And we've used all of our Leers on Onix, so it's really just a matter of, okay, can we get through? That one didn't quite work out, but it did look like we were getting a little bit closer there, so let's see if we can get a really good run. Okay, this is decent. We're through with 9 Wraps remaining. Okay, we don't like that bind from Onix. Okay, but now we can see that we've gotten through to Onix. We've gotten all of our Leers off. And there we were just about to run out of Wraps as we came to that part of the fight. So here, let's see. We've just used 1 Leer on Geodude to see if that will improve our damage range just a little bit. Gets us through to Onix with 9 Wraps remaining. Okay, and now we have to try to get our hits off, which we just couldn't get any hits off there. Like, this Geodude has 29 HP. So when I say that we're trying to get through with 10 Wraps remaining, it basically means we need to average 3 hits per Wrap in order to get through there. Okay, and that's all of our Leers off, but we just couldn't do any damage at that point. So if we use a single Leer, does that improve things at all? Right, we just need, on average, our Wrap to do 3 damage per hit. Okay, and we're through with 11 Wraps this time. 5, 6, 7. Okay, now we've gotten Onix caught in our Wrap. And now I think we just want to try to wrap it down. Got 2 Wraps, and there we go. Okay, so we have gotten through Brock with the Dragonair by using Wrap, basically. And it took a little bit of luck, a little bit of doing. We ended up with only 1 Wrap remaining, but it's just about getting the ranges there. So it looks like 1 Leer against the Geodude does help by lowering its defense just enough that maybe we're doing 2 damage per hit as opposed to 1 damage per hit. And then against the Onix, getting our 6 Leers off and then just wrapping it until we can take it down. So pretty cool to see that Dragonair was able to get through. It's time to get Dragonite in. Dragonite, kind of the original pseudo-legendary Pokemon. It took so much work to get a Dragonite in the original game because Dratini levels up slowly, and Dragonite you only get at level 55 in this generation, so you really had to grind that Dratini up quite a bit in order to get Dragonite. Plus, you didn't even get Dratini until the Safari Zone, so you were already most of the way through the game by the time that you got yourself a Dragonite. But it was a very powerful Pokemon. It just wasn't a good competitive Pokemon because of the metagame, because Blizzard and Ice Beam are everywhere in competitive Pokemon. But the normal game playthroughs are quite different because unlike the competitive meta, there aren't a lot of Ice-type moves in a single Pokemon playthrough. In fact, the only places you're going to see Ice-type moves are when you get to the Elite Four against Lorelei. And then, of course, Lance added Ice-type moves to his Pokemon in Yellow version. In Red version, Lance's, or Red and Blue version rather, Lance's Pokemon don't have any Ice-type moves. And because of that, it was much easier to get through with a Dragonite, because you could have Ice-type moves, but they wouldn't. So you would be able to use Thunderbolt and Ice Beam or Blizzard in order to get through all of his Pokemon pretty reliably. So Dragonite was much more powerful in a single Pokemon playthrough in Red and Blue version, but still, it's going to be a pretty strong type here because it resists so many things. Water's not going to be very effective. Electric type is only going to be normally effective. Grass type will be resisted. Fire type will be resisted, so it's going to have a lot of advantages compared to other Pokemon in this run. So here we're going to get off some Leers against the Caterpie just to make this very easy. And there we go. So Dragonite's one additional move here is Agility. And Agility might come into play against Onix because we can effectively get ahead of the Onix and we could theoretically just lock it into Wraps instead of having to mess around. So we're going to go ahead and use Agility once right off the bat and start trying to wrap down this Geodude. The logic is the same. We want to get through with at least about 10 wraps. We're through with 11, so pretty good. And here, the big thing is that we outspeed Onix because of our agility. And so now it's just about the damage ranges and hopefully not missing too many times. And there we go. Dragonite, based on what we learned with Dragonair, is able to get through Brock on the very first attempt. And Dragonite, I think, is going to have a good chance of getting through this entire game if its level curve doesn't hold it back. So we're going into the last two Pokemon. And of these 15 Pokemon today, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 have already beaten Brock. So Mewtwo and Mew are just icing on the cake. But let's go ahead and start off actually with Mew. And the reason I want to start off with Mew is because I think it's going to be a little bit more interesting to look at than Mewtwo. I think Mewtwo is already set up to basically just beat the entire game. If any Pokemon is going to be able to get through this game on minimum battles, it's going to be Mewtwo. So really, Mew is the Pokemon that I think we're more interested in how this is going to go. And that's why I think we should go ahead and actually start with Mew here. So let's see. Let's make sure that I've got my max DVs in. I do. And here we are. We have our Mew. And it's just starting with a perfect 16 in every single stat at level 5. We can see its Pound is pretty strong, but that's the only move that it gets is Pound. And Pound is going to be resisted by the Geodude. Whereas we are not going to have any resistance against Geodude's tackles. So if we're going to get through, we're going to need Geodude to likely miss at least a couple times. Then we'll level up to level 9, I believe, against the Onix. So we still won't quite hit the level that we need in order to learn Transform. If we could get to level 10, we would learn Transform and have a pretty sizable advantage in that we would be able to outsmart Brock's AI in using moves like Bind and Bide. Because Brock isn't smart enough to know not to attack you when you use Bide, for example. And he's not smart enough to realize that he should use Screech 3 times before he uses Bind or Tackle, since, you know, he'll lower your defense so much. So anyway, here we are. We are through the Bug Catcher, and we level up to level 8 due to being part of the medium slow level up group. So that is good for our Mew. But now we need Mew to be able to beat a level 10 Geodude. And this is going to be a rough one, I think, because here we can see that we're doing okay damage, but we're not keeping up in the damage race with the Geodude. So we clearly need the Geodude to get some misses. We need some critical hits. And again, Geodude just pulled a little ahead of us on the damage race there. So it's really misses and critical hits is gonna decide this one, I think. Okay, and we are through Geodude, but now against Onix, we can only use Pounds, and it unleashes energy, and we're out of there. So this is the problem of Mew. Mew is an awesome Pokemon. Once we get to someplace like Celadon City and we can get a ton of different TMs, Mew is arguably the second best Pokemon in the entire game, only after Mewtwo. But the issue that it has is that it doesn't have a great level up learn set, at least in RBY, and because of that, starting the game with only Pound and then learning Transform at level 10, and not learning any moves except every 10 levels, basically just means Mew isn't strong enough, and Mew is out of there. So one uber Pokemon of Generation 1 cannot beat Brock. Together with one of the legendary birds, Aerodactyl, which is incredibly powerful, Porygon, even though we had a pretty interesting and decent strategy. So we're very likely going to be left with this set right here that you can see right now, because Mewtwo, of course, is going to absolutely crush Brock. I don't think that we even need to debate or discuss whether or not Mewtwo can do this. Mewtwo has Psychic, and that is basically going to be GG for Brock. Psychic is one of the most powerful moves in the entire game of Pokemon. It allows us to drop our opponent's special, as well as dealing incredible amounts of damage. So let's start right here. Against the rival, Psychic just barely misses one hitting, and that's with neutral damage. That might even be a range where Psychic could one-hit the Eevee with a better damage range. But we have to keep in mind that our Mewtwo's max DVs haven't even come in yet. Like, we're still at level 5 because we're part of the slow level up group here. But what Mewtwo's going to have going for it through the entire game, even though it's going to be at lower levels, it's got an insane moveset, it's got insane stats. And with max DVs, like, those stats are just going to be so completely over the top that our opponents just aren't going to be able to stand up to Mewtwo. So let's go ahead and get up to Viridian Forest, where the Caterpie again is going to be no challenge whatsoever. And honestly, like, sure, Starmie's going to resist Mewtwo's Psychic, but Psychic is so strong that I think it's not going to matter. And really, what else can fight us effectively? Like, sure, Sabrina with Alakazam will be an interesting fight, but we're going to have so many different types of moves to use there that I honestly don't think that's going to be that difficult. I don't even think we need to heal before Brock. We definitely don't need to save before Brock, because that's one Psychic and two Psychics. And Brock goes down. We took 0 damage in the fight. Yes, our Mewtwo is going to be under-leveled the entire game, but its stats are just insane. Its starting moveset is awesome. Disable's the only, like, not good move here, and we're going to replace Disable fairly quickly with some stronger moves based on TMs that we get, and we're just going to sweep through the game, is my opinion. I would be very surprised if we ever even have to reset with our Mewtwo going through this game on minimum battles, but definitely Mewtwo is moving on. So that will do it for the Brock Minimum Battles Challenge. We have played through Brock with 151 Pokemon to see which Pokemon could get through. Prior to today's episode, 63 Pokemon had completed the challenge. And we are adding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Pokemon to that list. So of 151 Pokemon, 72 Pokemon have gotten through Brock on minimum battles. Some Pokemon have had a really easy time, like Mewtwo, like Omastar, like Articuno. And some Pokemon have really had to fight for their meal. Dragonair, Dodrio, if you remember a few episodes back, using Fury Attack, just managed to get through Brock. It's going to be very interesting to see how these Pokemon translate to the next stage. And speaking of, next time, we will be fighting Misty. And for our Misty runs, now that we've got 72 Pokemon, we've been doing 15 up to this point. And that's because there's only 3 battles to do between Pallet Town and Brock. You just fight the rival, you fight the bug catcher, you fight Brock, and you're done. But in the next section, we're going to have a little bit more interest because we have to beat Misty to move on in the game. Which means definitely we have to go through Mount Moon, which is going to give us quite a few Pokemon battles. But once we get to Cerulean City, not every Pokemon is going to immediately be able to fight Misty. Some Pokemon are going to need to use different routing. For example, they'll need to go north to Bill's house. They'll need to fight the Rocket Grunt in order to get the Dig TM. They'll need to go down to the SSN just to get a little more experience and fight Rival 3. All of those are legitimate strategies leading up to Misty. So I want to mix up the groups a little bit so that we have some Pokemon that are really good, some Pokemon that will struggle a little bit more, and see how consistently we can get through Misty. So for next week, for our first Misty run, I want to try these 5 Pokemon. I think they're going to be very interesting. We're going to take our Surfing Pikachu that got through Brock, go through Mount Moon, get to Misty. That might be a Pokemon that we run straight to Misty and we fight her immediately and just take her out without any need for extra grinding, extra battles. Oddish is going to be interesting because in the routes between here and Misty, we're going to come up against Flying-type Pokemon and Poison-type Pokemon. Oddish only knows Absorb. So if Oddish, being under-leveled as it will be, is unable to get through those fights, we might be knocking out a fairly strong Pokemon, considering its potential against Misty, based on its inability to get through the trainers before Misty. Rhydon is an incredibly strong Pokemon, and we would expect it to do pretty good in this whole run, but Misty is probably its hardest trainer coming up, because it's going to have a 4 times weakness to Misty's Water-type moves. Misty uses Water Gun even. That's going to probably be enough to take out Rhydon. In that case, we're probably going to have to go north to Bill's house, take out all the trainers up there that are required in order to get through, and then try to get the Dig TM in order to break through Misty. Starmie is going to be incredibly interesting. We're going to use Misty's Ace against her. One advantage that we can get with Starmie is if we just get past Nugget Bridge, we can get the Thunder Wave TM. And with Thunder Wave, we may be able to stall her out a little bit and get a situation where we can use our tackles in order to get through the fight. Finally, Arcanine. As I've said before, it's the original legendary Pokemon. It's the first legendary Pokemon you get in the game. Just check its Pokedex entry. This Pokemon is my favorite Pokemon, and it's definitely going to need Dig to get through Misty. If we can get Dig, that's going to be a move that we're going to carry on Arcanine through the rest of the game. Absolutely. But Dig will enable us to have a high base power move, a 100 base power move, to use on Misty, and possibly get through the Starmie. So it's going to be incredibly interesting to see how these runs play out, and I'm excited for next week's episode. These are your 5 Pokemon, and then we'll do 5 more, 5 more, 5 more. A couple places we'll do 6, since we have 72 Pokemon. So if we have a set of Pokemon that seem like they're going to have a really easy time against Misty, we'll go ahead and throw an extra Pokemon in. But I just want to mix it up. I want to make sure that we've got some interesting Pokemon in every episode, and I think this is a good way to start. So, with that, we will see you next week. Like, subscribe, comment. If you have specific Pokemon you want to see us use in the next episode against Misty, let me know down below. Okay? Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time. I'll send you out with a little bit of music and a reminder to subscribe.
black market love rate. She checked her halo at the barroom door. As the night bleeds, masquerades, ya no puedo resistir to amor. I know the evil games that you're playing. The way your eyes fall just like a flame. It'd be a sin just to know your name. Whoa, don't make me beg for your love, babe. Whoa, you've got my heart on a chain. With your black eyes on the red moon